really excited to be in this role as food equity program manager, and it is fairly new to the food bank.
Welcome to NDTR Spotlight, the corner of the internet where NDTR shine. I'm your host, Marie Lorraine. March 2023 is the first ever National Nutrition Month with a for NDTRs. And in the celebration, we partnered with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics to highlight NDTRs who are very active members in the Academy. And Rose is our guest today. She is a very well-educated woman. She has an associate's degree in dietetic technology. She has a bachelor's in nutrition and food studies with a concentration in food and restaurant management, and she's pursuing her MBA in sustainable leadership and an MS in sustainable food systems. She currently is working as a food equity program manager at the Food Bank of South Jersey and is an adjunct instructor. So very excited to be able to sit down and talk with an NDTR who's working in community nutrition and sustainability nutrition. We haven't really had that on the podcast, so it's going to be a great time. Rose, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So blown away by just the bio and what I just learned about you briefly, but kind of tell us, let's start with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And when did you first become an Academy member?
It was way back around the time when I started the NDTR program at Camden County College. So that's in New Jersey. That was around 2011. And we were just encouraged to become student members, which I found was really beneficial.
So that's definitely been a common theme with the guests of becoming becoming a Academy member while being a student. So with that in mind, being an Academy member as an NDTR, what's that been like for you?
So for myself as a student member, obviously there's the perks of having student discounts, but it was a great chance for me, and even until now, to explore interests. So if you are a student of maybe there's something that you are able to learn, expand upon that you're not necessarily learning in the classroom, and that's another opportunity, being part of the academy, or gaining further knowledge. So for myself now, of continuing education is really, it's needed. So finding those opportunities and especially networking with other NDTRs, but also registered dietitians as well.
Yes, those benefits of being a member it's so wonderful for your career. And so how, as an NDTR, how has the Academy contributed or helped you in your career?
I would say for one of the resources that I would like to say that I use the most are the email blasts. I know people can get overwhelmed by emails, but I found that to be really helpful because it summarizes to you of what the continuing education opportunities are. Also, if maybe there's articles that are related to my work that I share out with my other colleagues. And some of my colleagues are NDTRs as well. And it's convenient. It saves me time. I may not have to do as much digging as I need to. And I know that the information is current, accurate, and evidence-based, which is really important in our profession.
Yes, that's such a great thing to highlight. I never really talk about the emails. They come and it's so easy just to look past it, but taking the time to read through them, you're so right. It's like it's already been proofed, it's already been sourced, you already know you can trust it. So it takes away so much of the stress and then staying up to date. Such a great point there. But you did say something that is very, very rare in the diet technician world. You say you work with NDTR. So we have to take a quick pause and talk a little bit about your career and what you're doing as an NDTR. Kind of give us a summary.
Yeah. So pursuing a career in nutrition, that was not what I initially had in mind growing up. I would say my passion for food has evolved. So as you mentioned, I attended NYU with nutrition and food studies major, concentration in food and restaurant management. So I was thinking I was going to go into the hospitality industry. I had dietetic students in my class, but it wasn't something that I even considered. Afterwards, I worked in sales department of a hotel. So think of meeting event planning, working with the catering and restaurant departments. And after several years, I realized I was just getting away from my passion for food. At the same time, I was thinking, I want to do something to help people. So I looked into nutrition programs, and what I thought worked best for myself was to first pursue an NDTR program and then transfer into an RD program. So I went through the NDTR program at Camden County College, really enjoyed my community rotation, which included interning at the Food Bank of South Jersey. And because of that, right, that and some of my colleagues now, they went through that same program and became employed at the food bank as well. And for myself, ultimately, I found that it wasn't necessary for me to become an RD, and becoming an NDTR, I found that helped set me up to be a nutrition educator in community settings. So my colleagues and I that are NDTR is kind of similar situation where we went through the same exact program, did an internship at some point. Again, we kind of have overlapping schooling and things like that, but we really enjoyed that. And in different roles, for myself, I'm the food equity program manager. There are nutrition educators. We have our senior program manager that's an NDTR. So it's really great to be able to work with them and others as well within our department.
I think we just hit a gold mine, because usually when I think community, it's always like WIC, and that's kind of like, what else is there? What is a day like in your role?
Right. So really, I'm really excited to be in this role as food equity program manager, and it really is fairly new to the food bank, and I'm really excited to kind of help shape the role of it. So with that in mind, I'm working to develop and implement programs that's aimed at building equity around health, food, and nutrition in the communities that we serve. So really taking point of, it's not just about being equal, it's about being fair. Like, how can we work with individuals and organizations to come up with solutions and overcome barriers, right? There's so many different barriers that people might have, and increasing food security, right? So not only food security as in having safe, nutritious, and sufficient food, but also having culturally appropriate foods as well. So that's something, looking at different programs of things haven't been launched yet. So, but there's things in the works that I'm excited about.
That work is so important, just hitting the ground. And I love what you said about not being equal, but being fair, and having that, that being a standard. And so, and you're solving these issues of not having diversity in the food, and I feel like you probably see a lot on the ground where you're working, especially after COVID and just society of itself. It feels like there's always some type of disaster, something hard happening, where things like food banks are really, really important for our society. So what do you see the biggest impact in the work that you're doing?
The impact, I know, at least for us, we're trying to collaborate more with our programs and services of what are there, how can we do connect people more to resources, because it's not just food that people may need, that there are housing, health issues, things like that. And even within during the pandemic, actually my team, we're and still working on COVID initiatives of providing those clinics during food distributions, right? A barrier for some people is time. People don't have the time, or means of transportation is a challenge of, if people are already coming out for food distributions, let's have a clinic available, or a town hall, or maybe letting them know that there's a webinar available so that they can talk to a healthcare provider to provide them, again, with current, accurate, evidence-based information. So connecting people to resources other than food is important to consider as well.
And so for someone listening to this podcast, an NDTR who's interested in joining or pursuing a career in food banks and community nutrition, what would you say are some of the key traits you need to have in order to do the job that you do successfully?
I would say to be comfortable and open to working to a variety of people, to diverse. There's people of all ages, of ethnic backgrounds, of socioeconomic status, because really anybody at any point can go right to a distribution, may need food assistance, or any assistance for that matter. So that would be a key thing as well, being able to work with diverse populations. Communication skills, certainly important. Nutrition background is really helpful as well. As an NDTR, again, that strong foundation is important, which again can set you apart from others that may not have that background.
Yeah, and can we dive a little bit into that more specifically? Because you mentioned there's other things outside of food, which I 100% agree with you. You can't tell people you have to eat healthy and then they don't have a house to live in. It's like they're like, I don't care. But how does that nutrition foundation as an NDTR really just make a difference in what you're doing?
Right, so connecting it to different things, right? Think of mental health. So working with whether or the mood, mood with food, or, that sort of thing. There's different programs that we are looking into to connect those other things as well. How does food connect with other aspects of health? How does nutrition do that? And maybe within our scope, maybe it's not. And if not, who can we collaborate with to, again, better support our communities?
That's exciting because that feels like it's all the nutrition science of like mental health and food, and that just makes me it makes me want to nerd out. Just being able to use that aspect of your education. And so you mentioned some of the benefits of the academy is the emails and the things you send to your colleagues. So what are you really pulling for this position?
I would say at least ones that focus on food security, again, because I work at a food bank, if I see webinars on that, on food equity, and certainly articles that may show studies of things that we may be trying to utilize of what are some best practices, right? Especially if we're developing new programs or things that have worked or may not have worked, can certainly help us to kind of cut some of that of realizing, okay, maybe we shouldn't do this, maybe this might be a better option. And that's where I kind of look to those resources to see for some ideas.
Yeah, as opposed to reinventing the wheel.
Correct.
Yes,
Exactly.
a lot.
Yes.
That's lots of time.
So my colleagues are used to me sharing in the title of sharing, here's an article or here's a webinar, but no, it's been really, really helpful, and I've been able to get a lot out of it.
And it's super helpful. And then you're also an adjunct instructor as well. So do you pull things differently for that position, or is it kind of around the same realm?
Sometimes, certainly with in New Jersey right now, with any updates as far as licensure and things like that, anything that's related to the state, because I teach in New Jersey, I'll pull that in, that little tidbit to get more information that's related to them. And to clarify, I do teach non-dietetic students. So it's mostly students that are going into nursing or health and exercise science. So in the very beginning of the semester, I'll ask them, so like, have you ever had any nutrition class? Have you taken, or do you have, any nutrition background? And oftentimes than not, they will say that they've never had a nutrition class. So this is kind of a way for them to see. And some will say, I'm taking it out of pure interest, and which makes me so happy. I was like, everyone can benefit from a nutrition class. And really, again, making it really basic, again, because they're not going to the nutrition field, but it's very important, whether personally or professionally, for them to have that basic foundation of nutrition and understanding those things. So, and then they have an opportunity to do a cultural foods project, right? To research about a different country or region and learning about that as well. So something that I do pull from my work, one of the curriculum that we teach is A Taste of African Heritage, which is from Old Ways. And so if someone is looking to research on Africa, I'll say, oh, here's a resource that you can start on. And it shows the African Heritage Pyramid and some recipes and ideas to get them started. And again, to provide them with, accurate information and things like that. So, the African Heritage Pyramid, again, it's through Old Ways, which is a nonprofit organization. They do have different, I think, Latin, and then other ones as well. But certainly I'd be willing to share that resource so you can share that out.
So it's like, is it like a food pyramid specific for a culture? Does that?
Yes. So certainly.
That's so helpful.
Mm-hmm. And then it shows the foods that they're commonly consumed there. And so again, with these different things that they'll be, people can better relate, right, to the foods and healthier ways of eating those foods.
Yeah. So your combination of jobs is very interesting. How do you manage? Well, first, how did you find the adjunct instructor position?
I actually, so that still at Camden County College, while I was starting my program as an NDTR, because of my hospitality background working at a hotel, I started teaching hospitality classes first. So I was teaching like meeting event planning, intro to hospitality. And then after I finished my program, became an NDTR, then I was offered the opportunity to teach introductory nutrition class there.
That's exciting. So just being available and doing things allowed you to get some really great opportunities. How do you juggle both of those positions?
I would say, truthfully, no sleep, less sleep. But I really enjoy everything that I do. And, the classes now, I used to teach more, I transitioned from in-person to hybrid, and now it's all online. So I kind of have that good balance of, working full time at the food bank. And then whether it's the weekends or evenings that I'm working on teaching, that's how I balance it out.
You figured out a way. That's so fun to be able to do two different education and being involved in the community. And so we talked about the benefits that you get from the academy, but as a member, it's a give and take relationship. So what have you contributed or what do you contribute to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics?
So I'm active in the New Jersey chapter, so the New Jersey Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, NJANS for short. And in the past, I've helped plan their annual meetings. And currently I'm the liaison, so I help between NJANS and the food bank. We're a partner, official partnership. And so helping set up collaborations with NJANS, for instance, setting up volunteer opportunities. So something that they had helped us with before was making my plates of different like cultural cuisines, again, like the African heritage diet or Latin, and having it utilized in our nutrition classes to share with the participants. Again, that helps them to better relate to the information that we're teaching them, or setting up a volunteer opportunity to help at a food distribution. So things like that.
So it sounds like you're using your food planning a lot in your career as a diet technician.
Yes, very much so. And I must give credit to my mom, who's very much organized and detail oriented, vet planning, things like that. That's where I get my skills from. So yeah, it's a lot to organize and try to do all that.
Yeah, and I think it's so fun too because when people kind of enter into the field, maybe not right away, they can bring something else, and it just enhances what they're already doing as an NDTR, which is very, very exciting. I want to ask, what is one thing that people might not know about NDTRs?
I would say you can be a preceptor. I feel, just think of when you were a student, how challenging was it to, or it may have been challenging to get placement for for a rotation of, you can be a preceptor and help someone out, right? In a previous role at the food bank, that was my role, was to precept future NDTRs and RDs for their community rotation. And we continue to take in interns. I'm also an advisor for the Nutrition Dietetics Club at Camden County College. So I precept any of the students that are going through their community rotation and help out with our activities. So for example, it could be putting together a nutrition themed bulletin board on campus, or giving away healthy snacks and nutrition related handouts during midterms, right? Fuel your brain. And so what I would advise is, if you're not already a preceptor, I would be interested in being one, I think it's worth looking into, seeing what the academy has. They have lots of resources, right, available to talk about precepting, and asking your employer if it's feasible.
Something I've not heard anywhere. I always thought you had to be like a dietitian to be a preceptor, or an NDTR. It wasn't really something that you should even pursue, but that's a great way for NDTRs to give back to the profession. And let me ask you this, just being able to precept students who are in a dietetic internship and becoming a dietitian, do you see them having a better understanding of what an NDTR is by being precepted by you?
I think it has its benefits, certainly, that, again, realizing that maybe, or at least for myself, oftentimes I see that RDs and NDTRs are working in clinical settings, but there's so much more opportunity. And again, for an NDTR, for myself, within the community nutrition field of, you don't necessarily have to be supervised by an RD, right? In a clinical setting, you may be supervised by an RD that you can be a manager, right, as an NDTR, or even further than that. So again, there's so much opportunity.
That is so true. When you're not in clinical, the scope just expands so much for diet technicians. And then being able to precept the future generations or the future nutrition professionals, sounds really rewarding. Do you have any stories that really stood out from precepting a student?
Not necessarily a story, but I'm just so amazed at how much commitment students have, right? They're willing to work and really learn the ropes, and really appreciative, right? They've already got the foundation from their classes, but it's important to be able to apply it. So their knowledge, being able to apply it, being creative, and then seeing that by the end of the internship that, hey, they're set, they have their other rotations, but they're going into the community, if they're interested in community nutrition, that they would be great in an entry level position, right? So I hope that we help set them up for success.
Yeah, the way you just talk about the progress you see in your interns is a sign that they are being set up for success because you're seeing that growth, and usually growth is attributed to teachers and what they're pouring into their students. So that's really cool. And so this is what we should let's switch a little bit to the first NDTR day that's happening March 2023. What was your reaction when you heard about the day?
I was so excited, and then I sent an email to my colleagues to say, can we recognize the NDTRs in our organization? And my supervisor said, yes, with an exclamation point. So, no, I'm so excited. Yet people may not know, again, the credential may not be as widely known to people, but we've put in, right, a lot of school. It may not be as much schooling or internship hours as for registered dietitians, but we put in the work. So with acknowledging that I'm thinking about the exam as well. We've had to take a national exam as well, which it could be very stressing, and it's worth celebrating us passing it, right? And how far we've come, and what we're doing now. Like there's so much opportunity, different things that we've accomplished as individuals.
Very well said. Very well said. And so, in line with that, how would you? I saw you sent out the email asking for NDTRs to be acknowledged for your job, but how would you like to see NDTRs be acknowledged on the day and then here on after?
I mean, as I mentioned, right? What was it? Acknowledging, how far we've come as far as in schooling, and also the responsibilities, right? That we've come, how the contributions that we've made in all the different nutrition related fields.
Yeah. So just what we do without essentially. You've mentioned the work you've been doing in food service, in community nutrition, and as a preceptor and as a teacher. But what is the thing that you enjoy most about being in a DTR?
I think it's not so much of food and nutrition focus, but the collaboration of collaborating with organizations and individuals to help, how can we better support the communities that we serve? So building those relationship and trust is, especially, as my career has evolved and, in my master's degree as well, of being intentional and being present, and that relationship and trust building is so important for change to happen, for impactful change to happen.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. This question was made for you this year for National Nutrition Month is Fuel for the Future. And so as an NDTR, how do you help people fuel their future while protecting the planet?
Right. I feel, again, the role that I just mentioned as food equity program manager, right, of developing and implementing programs, right, building it aimed at building equity around health and food and nutrition. What are the barriers? How can we overcome them? And then as far as protecting the planet, at least directly of what we do is, how are ways that we can reduce food waste, right? Whether it's using the same ingredients in multiple ways, right? That's one way that we can educate the community. It could be creative ways, combining the leftovers to make a whole new dish, right? Let's say using leftover vegetables to make a stir fry, or putting it in an omelet, and providing them with tips on how to properly store food, whether if they're not going to use it anymore, how can they properly store it or freeze it so that they can have it for another meal. So all of these different things. And when I heard the theme, I was like, oh my gosh, the stars are aligning, and everything that I'm doing, and it's what I do, and it's what I love.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I have to ask, so you're currently in the pursuit of your master's degrees. So what is in the future for Rose as an NDTR?
I'm not exactly sure, but with it has certainly opened my eyes of, again, it's more than just food and nutrition. There's this whole system of people and organizations. It's so complex that there's so, I don't want to focus so much on the issues, but how can we come up with solutions, again, of, improving our communities. So if in some way I can do that, probably staying in New Jersey because I'll always be a Jersey girl. Um, but something along those lines would be really fulfilling.
I love that, finding the solutions and not just looking at problems, but coming with solutions. And so, is there anything you would like to add or share with the NDTR audience?
I would say happy NDTR day. It's so exciting. Go out, celebrate, and do what you love. Pursue, and pursue what you love. And there's, again, so many other opportunities, whether it's maybe the next step is becoming a registered dietitian, or perhaps it's going in a different direction like I am, looking into food systems, that it's not just academically, there's other maybe job opportunities that are out there, clinical, food service, community. Find what you love to do.
And if anyone wants to get in contact with you or follow a little more of your journey, how can they find you?
Yes, definitely feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Well, Rose, thank you so much for your time. What you're doing is incredible. And thank you for, one, promoting the NDTR credential, and then also just helping people on the ground with food insecurity. What you're doing is so, so important for society. So thank you so much for your time. If you enjoyed the spotlight, make sure to give it a like, and we'll see you in our next one.